If you're thinking about divorce and your spouse has not cheated on you sexually or possibly is not abusive in the relationship, that can be a threat to your life, and you think that divorcing is the only option for you as a young couple, then this video is for you. I'm Del Quest, your Mindsurgeon. I'll be right back.
In a small town, there were two people deeply in love. Sarah and Michael had been together for years and had built a life full of joy and shared dreams. They were inseparable, their laughter echoing through the halls of their home, their love shining brightly in their eyes. But one day, their world was turned upside down. Michael lost his job, and Sarah's business faced unexpected challenges. Financial stress crept into their lives, causing tension and arguments that they had never experienced before. They both felt overwhelmed, and their once strong relationship was put to the test. As the days turned into weeks and then months, Sarah and Michael found themselves in a downward spiral. They were distant from each other, lost in their own worries and fears. The laughter that used to fill their home was now replaced with silence and tension. They tried to put on a brave face for the outside world, but deep down, they were struggling. One evening, Sarah couldn't take it anymore. She broke down in tears, pouring out her fears and frustrations to Michael. He listened with a heavy heart, realizing how much pain Sarah had been hiding. He held her tightly, telling her that he was sorry for his own struggles and for not being there for her as he should have been. Moved by Sarah's vulnerability, Michael opened up about his own fears and worries. They realized that they were both trying to protect each other by not burdening the other with their own struggles. But in doing so, they had drifted apart. They realized that they needed to be each other's support, not just in good times but in tough times too. With renewed determination, Sarah and Michael made a pact to face their challenges together as a team. They cut back on unnecessary expenses, created a budget, and started exploring new job opportunities. They also prioritized their emotional well-being, making time for date nights and heartfelt conversations. And Sarah's business started picking up again. Michael landed a new job that he was passionate about. Their financial situation improved, but more importantly, their bond grew stronger than ever. They had weathered the storm together and had come out on the other side with a deeper appreciation for each other and the value of their relationship. Looking back, Sarah and Michael realized that the tough times had tested their love, but it had also strengthened it. They had learned that challenges were a part of life, and it was okay to lean on each other for support. Their journey had not been easy, but it had made their love for each other even more resilient. Today, Sarah and Michael are still together, holding hands and facing life's challenges with unwavering love and support for each other. They often look back on that difficult time as a reminder of the power of love and the importance of facing tough times hand in hand. Their love story is a testament to the fact that love can conquer any challenge, and that with determination and a deep emotional connection, couples can overcome even the toughest of times.
Welcome back. We're talking about thinking about divorce. And this video is actually dedicated to a very young couple who just possibly started the whole journey of marriage. And they're going through challenges. And sometimes the only thing that you can think about as a solution is to go your separate ways. Let me first start by making a statement, right? That you can mostly tell the longevity of a marriage if you're very sensitive and very observant. You can tell it right from the wedding. Yes, you can tell it from the events that led to them getting married. Before I got married, I used to have a problem with the whole process of wedding, whether it being extravagant or simple. I realized that it's not actually about the money, but the whole process of having a wedding or a traditional ceremony, let me put it that way, is to test both of you as a couple how to take decisions when it comes to planning an event. It brings about a lot of things that you get to know about your partner in terms of choosing a venue, in terms of planning, in terms of budgeting, which is linked to your finances, and how truthful you are, and even the people you invite, and the connections you have, and then the belief that you have going forward. And so, if you're really compatible, what happens is that the event of the traditional wedding or ceremony or the white wedding puts the two of you at a test. And the two of you would know. There's always a red flags if they are one, that you would know that this marriage is actually meant for the long haul. It's not always the case, but mostly the case. And so I'm going to give you 5 things that you should consider also if you're thinking about divorce, so that you can try these things the last time, and if you're convinced that divorce is the only option left, then you have the autonomous decision to go ahead. The first one has to do with accessing your mind all over again. The mind is very important when it comes to marriage. Yes. A lot of times the reasons we give ourselves that pushes us to want to divorce is because of the things that we have actually perceived, which is not actually the case in reality. Let me explain. Sometimes when we observe things from afar, when we have judged things wrongly, when we have perceived things as they are because of what we previously have in our heads, we tend to make conclusions that makes us think that that's the case. And usually we don't engage the other party to know why they act in a certain way, why they did certain things the way they did that is causing the issue. And so we draw conclusions based on things we've heard from elsewhere or things we have observed because of what exists previously in our mind. And so the incoming information collides with the already existing information, creating a third information that makes us conclude on certain things, and sometimes we get it wrong. And so sitting down to assess your mind about why you think divorce is the best option, it's key. The second one is communication. Very important. Whilst you're deliberating on thinking about divorcing as a young couple, why don't you engage in a frank conversation with your spouse? I know sometimes men do run away from being asked the tough questions. Nobody wants to be asked frank questions because sometimes we try to run away and hide in a certain loop to evade being asked questions that are very critical and important because we don't want to come out vulnerable. But it's very important sometimes to ask the very hard questions. If you're a young couple and you have issues, you are confused about something, and you really want to understand the perspective of your spouse, I think it's prudent to engage in a very frank conversation, a hard one at that. You know, the type of conversation where you come out clean with each other, not because you want to judge each other, but you really want to understand the difficulties of the person and why the person acts the way the person does. It's very key. Because sometimes we find ourselves in a place which makes us act the way we act. And it's because we feel that that's the only option we have. But if you come clean and clear and begin to have that frank conversation, you realize that your spouse can have a change of mind and possibly understand you, that the way you behave is coming from either from something that you learned in the past, the way you were nurtured, and how you have perceived certain things for a long period of time. So it's very key. Let me give a practical example. If you grew up in a family where you always saw your dad abusing your mom, his wife, chances are that you're likely to do the same thing, not physically, but verbally. So in as much as you're trying to run away from becoming an explicit image of your dad, the more you become it in a different way. Not physically, but verbally, and sometimes emotionally. The third thing that you have to also consider before you think about divorce has to do with seeking a professional advice or counsel. When it comes to seeking professional counsel, I always am careful to say that go and see a pastor. It's not because I don't like pastors. I do. I have friends who are pastors. In fact, my mom is a reverend minister, and she's very good at what she does when it comes to counseling. I'm talking about seeking a professional advice from elders of your family, people you give reverence to, possibly not your family but elsewhere, who have had the experience, who understand your peculiar problem. It's good to seek counsel from people who have been in your situation before, so that they can help you by giving you options on how they went about it. Very key. But if you go and see a pastor who, for some reason, has no experience, and for some reason of leadership, you call the person Papa or Mama just because they occupy a certain office higher than you in the religious cycle, it doesn't really mean that they are experienced enough to give you that advice, especially when you are dealing with very peculiar situations. And so you have family members you can talk to, you can trust. You have people in society you admire who can be mentors. You can go and seek professional advice from. And then you can also talk to, yes, religious leaders, where your pastors and your imams and all of that come in. It's very important because it's also good to see from the perspective of others that this is what you're going through and it's leading you to think of divorce. But you want a third opinion, or you want someone to take an assessment with you that is it doable, can it be solved? And if it can be solved, then you go ahead and solve it. The fourth thing that you can consider deeply before you think about divorce has to do with taking yourself out of the situation, isolating yourself. Now, it's very important to note that, yes, you're the one going through what you're going through to think about divorce as an option, to walk out. So you do these two things. Whilst you're thinking about it, whilst in the situation, you also think about it isolated from the situation. So you ask yourself questions like, okay, so assuming I'm not going through this, what advice would I give to the person going through that situation, which is you? And so when you start thinking outside the box by isolating yourself, you begin to see the totality of the picture, and then you begin to locate solutions in the situation that you find yourself in. Because what happens is that sometimes when you don't isolate yourself from the problem, you're likely not to see the bigger picture. And so you are boxed in on taking that decision of walking away when there are so many solutions out there that you can engage with your partner. I always say that it's not always that bad. Yes, it's not always that bad. Sometimes we are overwhelmed by what we discover, what we hear, and so the next thing is to emotionally react. And that is why I always say that you have to relook at things again. And when you want to divorce, that is your autonomous decision. The last thing that I would like you to consider before you finally divorce or think about it is to think about the ramifications, the repercussions, and the result of things. Divorce is not just a separation between two people, it's actually death. You heard me right. Divorce is death. You can ask people who have divorced. The process itself is draining. Walking to court, spending money on going through the cases, the stress involved, the emotional stress, it takes a toll on you, and it takes a lot of finances from you. In fact, it takes your time. And even after you have successfully gone through, there's another form of death that you begin to go through, especially if you have kids, because then you always know that the mother or the father of that child you have still exists. Especially when you see each other again at functions or places you never assumed meeting each other. A lot of things around you will remind you of that person, and it kills you, because then it becomes very difficult to forget about the event. There's also the issue of dealing with a certain level of loneliness for a certain period of time. And if you're not careful, it can cause you into deep depression and can even take your life. Yes, because then you begin to get depressed to the point where your immune system shuts down. I've seen people go through divorce and didn't survive. It's interesting to note that in recent times our generation talks freely about divorcing. I've heard people talk about divorcing and they seem to be doing well with their life, they've moved on and all of that. Sometimes you don't readily know the impact now, but it would always come up alive one day. But I'm not saying that you shouldn't divorce if you think that that's the best option for you, but I'm saying that as a young couple, if you think that you have not done these 5 things and there's room for assessment, just do it. And think about the future, because divorce is not just separation, it's actually mental death, because you go through a lot emotionally speaking, psychologically speaking, and then mentally speaking. It takes a lot away from you. I can't overemphasize on this. And so, as a young couple, if you really listen to the story that I wrote before I started speaking, you realize that it is always doable. There's always a solution at the end of the tunnel. And I wish you all the best if you're listening to me. If you're going through something like that, I want to encourage you that it is not dead yet. It can be revived. Yes, it's very possible. But above all that I have said, take it into prayer. The prayer where you communicate directly with your God privately in your closet. A prayer of thanksgiving that God has given you the life again, that you will be able to see where the solutions are. The prayer that there will be a hand that intervenes in things so that you can keep that family, beautiful family, once again. I am Dale Quest, your Mindsurgeon. Kindly subscribe to this beautiful channel and help me share it with a lot of people so I can reach a wider audience. And please, I will need you to like, subscribe, comment, and share so that we can grow the channel together. I want you to be part of this success story of growing this channel to what it should become. I'm out, and have a great day.